A high-value man is not born. He is built. He is not handed his worth at birth, and he does not stumble upon it by accident. He is forged, slowly, quietly, day after day, through choices that no one applauds and disciplines that no one witnesses. The world sees the result. The world rarely sees the work. And that is exactly why so few men ever become what they were capable of becoming. Let me ask you something. Look around you. Look at the men who walk into a room and instantly change the temperature of it. Look at the men whose words are short, but whose presence is heavy. Look at the men who are trusted without needing to prove themselves, who are respected without needing to demand it, who are followed without needing to chase. Have you ever asked yourself what makes them different? Have you ever looked closely and asked, what is the invisible thing that separates the man who is respected from the man who is only tolerated? Here is the truth most people ignore. The difference is not money. It is not muscles. It is not the suit. It is not the car. It is not the title on the business card. The difference is character. The difference is built. The difference is earned in private, long before it is recognized in public. Most men spend their lives trying to look like a high-value man, without ever doing the work to become one. They want the respect, but they do not want the responsibility. They want the rewards, but they do not want the routine. They want to be seen as strong, but they have never tested themselves in a single moment of true weakness. They want the world to admire them, but they have never sat alone with themselves long enough to find anything worth admiring. And so they perform, they posture, they post, they pretend. And the world, eventually, sees through it. Because the world always sees through it. Now listen carefully. You can fake confidence for a week. You can fake success for a month. You can fake a personality for a year. But you cannot fake character. Character is what remains when the lights go out, when no one is watching, when there is no audience and no applause and no one to impress. Character is who you are when there is absolutely nothing to gain from being good. And that is where the high-value man begins. Not in what he wears, not in what he owns, but in what he is, when no one is around to see it. So today, let us talk about what it actually takes to become a high-value man. Not the version sold on social media. Not the version dressed up in expensive watches and rented lifestyles. The real version. The version that lasts. The version that the world is hungry for, but few are willing to build. Let us go deeper. Here is something important. The world has confused appearance with substance for so long that most men no longer know the difference. They look at a man in a luxury car and assume he is successful. They look at a man on a stage and assume he is wise. They look at a man with followers and assume he is worth following. But appearance is the cheapest currency a man can spend. And it is also the easiest to counterfeit. Anyone can dress like a king. Very few can think like one. Very few can act like one. Very few can lead themselves like one. A high-value man understands this from the beginning. He does not waste his energy decorating the outside of a life that is empty on the inside. He does not chase symbols of success while ignoring the substance of it. He knows that the suit means nothing if the man inside it cannot keep his word. He knows that the title means nothing if the man holding it cannot control his temper. He knows that the watch on his wrist means nothing if the hours of his life are being wasted on things that do not matter. He builds from the inside out because he knows that anything built from the outside in eventually collapses. Think about that. Think about it carefully. Everything you see in the world that is impressive on the surface had to be true on the inside first. The great building had to have a foundation before it had a facade. The great athlete had to have 1,000 hours of unseen practice before he had a single moment of seen victory. The great leader had to be a leader of himself before he could ever lead anyone else. The outside is always the echo of the inside. Always. And if the inside is hollow, the echo is hollow too. So what is character, really? Character is the sum of your invisible choices. It is the choice to tell the truth when a lie would be easier. It is the choice to keep your word when breaking it would cost you nothing. It is the choice to do the work when no one is checking. It is the choice to be patient when you are angry, to be humble when you are praised, to be honest when you are embarrassed. Character is the accumulation of small moments of integrity that no one sees, until one day they all show up at once in the man you have become. Most people versus successful people. Most men think character is something you have. Successful men understand character is something you build, brick by brick, choice by choice, day by day. There is no shortcut to it. There is no app for it. There is no hack for it. There is only the slow, unglamorous, often invisible labor of doing the right thing again and again until doing the right thing becomes who you are. Let me ask you something honestly. If everything you own was taken from you tomorrow, your money, your status, your followers, your network, your titles, your possessions, who would you be? Who would be left? Would the man standing there still be worth respecting? Would he still have something to offer the world? Would he still be able to look in the mirror and recognize someone of substance? Because that man, the one who would remain after everything was stripped away, is the only man you actually are. Everything else is just decoration. Everything else is just performance. Everything else is just borrowed. Here is the hard truth. The world does not owe you respect for what you wear. The world does not owe you respect for what you drive. The world does not owe you respect for what you post or what you claim or what you imply. The world will, eventually, give you exactly the respect that your character has earned. Not a little more, not a little less. The market of life is honest in the long run, even when it is dishonest in the short run. A man of true character will be discovered. A man of false character will be exposed. Time is the great revealer. Time always tells. So if you want to become a high-value man, stop polishing the exterior of a life you have not bothered to build. Stop performing strength you have not earned. Stop wearing confidence you have not deserved. Start with the inside. Start with the man no one sees. Start with the version of you that exists at 3 a.m. when there is no one to impress and nothing to prove. Build that man first. Make him strong, make him honest, make him reliable. Make him someone you would respect if you met him as a stranger. And then, and only then, let the outside catch up to the inside. Let the outside be the natural overflow of who you have become, not a desperate disguise for who you are not. Because in the end, every man is two men. The man the world sees and the man he actually is. The closer those two men become, the more powerful he is. The further apart they are, the more fragile he is. The high-value man is not perfect, but he is whole. He is integrated. He is, in the truest sense of the word, the same man in every room. That is the foundation. That is where it begins. And without that, nothing else you build will stand. Now let us go deeper. Because character without direction is just stagnation that feels noble. A man can have integrity, discipline, honesty, and patience, and still drift through life accomplishing nothing if he does not know where he is going. The high-value man is not just a good man. He is a going man. He is moving. He is building. He is becoming. And he is doing it on a schedule. Here's the truth. Most men do not have goals. They have wishes. They have hopes. They have someday maybe dreams that float around in their head like clouds on a windless day, never landing, never producing, never demanding anything of them. They say they want to be successful, but they cannot tell you what success looks like to them. They say they want to be wealthy, but they cannot tell you the number. They say they want to be in shape, but they cannot tell you the date. They say they want to start the business, write the book, build the brand, change their life. And they have been saying it for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and not a single brick has been laid. Let me ask you something. How many years have you been wanting the same things? How many times have you told yourself, this is the year? How many Januaries have you opened with a list of promises that were dead by February? How many birthdays have passed where you stood in front of the mirror and realized that the man looking back at you is still saying the same things he was saying a decade ago? Think about that. Think about that slowly. Because that pattern, that quiet, repeating pattern of wishing without doing, is the single most expensive habit a man can carry. It does not bankrupt you in dollars, it bankrupts you in years. A goal without a deadline is a daydream. Write that down. A goal without a deadline is a daydream. It is fantasy with no muscle, vision with no spine, ambition with no architecture. It costs you nothing to have, which is exactly why it gives you nothing in return. The moment you attach a deadline to a goal, something extraordinary happens. The goal stops being decoration and starts being demand. The goal stops being something you would like to do and starts being something you have to do. The deadline forces choices. The deadline forces priorities. The deadline forces the man. Imagine two men. One wakes up every day and says, someday I will build the business I have been thinking about. He has been saying this for 7 years. He has read the books. He has watched the videos. He has bought the courses. But he has never set a date. He has never told anyone the date. He has never staked anything on the date. And so the business remains forever in the shape of an idea that never had to become a thing. The other man wakes up and says, in 12 months, this business will exist. He writes the date down. He tells the people closest to him. He breaks the 12 months into 4 quarters, the quarters into months, the months into weeks, the weeks into days, and the days into the next single task in front of him. He does not know if he will succeed, but he knows he will move. He knows he will know in 12 months whether the dream had any truth in it or whether it was just noise. That is the difference between the two men. Not talent, not luck, not resources, the deadline. The willingness to be measured. Now understand this deeply. The high-value man does not fear deadlines. He uses them. He knows that without a deadline, his mind will negotiate forever. His mind will always find a reason to start tomorrow, a reason to wait for the right moment, a reason to study a little more before acting. The mind, left to itself, is a brilliant procrastinator. It will dress up its laziness in the costume of preparation, in the language of timing, in the comfort of someday. The deadline cuts through all of it. The deadline says, this happens by this date, or it does not happen at all. And in that small, brutal, beautiful piece of structure, the man begins to grow. Here is something powerful. Deadlines do not just create progress. They create identity. The man who sets deadlines and meets them, even imperfectly, becomes a man who trusts himself. The man who sets deadlines and ignores them becomes a man who cannot trust himself. Every promise you make to yourself and break trains you to take yourself less seriously. Every promise you make and keep trains you to take yourself more seriously. Over time, the man who keeps his promises to himself becomes a man whose word, even his silent word, is iron. And the man who breaks his promises to himself becomes a man whose word, even spoken out loud, is air. So set the date, pick the goal, pick the year, pick the month, pick the week. Be specific, be honest, be brave enough to be wrong. Because here's the secret most men never learn. You do not have to know if the goal is right. You only have to be willing to find out. The high-value man is not the man who picks the perfect target. He is the man who picks a target, commits, executes, and adjusts. The target is just a direction. The deadline is just a tool. The growth is the man you become while pursuing them. How many opportunities have already passed because you were waiting for the perfect plan? How many years have already evaporated because you were too cautious to commit? Think about that. Because every year you spend without a deadline is a year that demands nothing of you. And a life that demands nothing of you produces a man who is capable of nothing. So today, decide. Pick the goal that has been haunting you, the one you keep thinking about and never starting. Give it a date. Give it a year. Give it a deadline that scares you a little. And then begin. Not when you feel ready. You will not feel ready. Begin because the deadline is real. And the man you want to become cannot be built any other way. That is power. That is structure. That is what separates the man who moves through life from the man who is moved by it. Now, let me tell you something important. The size of your life is determined by the size of your thinking, not by your circumstances, not by your background, not by your bank account, by the ceiling of your own imagination and the floor of your own standards. And most men, if they are honest, are living inside a box that they built themselves, with walls so familiar that they no longer notice them as walls at all. Here is the hard truth. Small thinking does not feel small from the inside. Small thinking feels like realism. It feels like maturity. It feels like being responsible. It dresses itself up in phrases like, I am being practical. I am being grounded. I am being smart about my expectations. But underneath the dignified vocabulary, it is often something else entirely. It is fear. It is the fear of disappointment, the fear of failing publicly, the fear of wanting something so badly that you might actually have to try for it. So the man with small thinking lowers his vision until it is safely within reach, and then congratulates himself for being reasonable, and he stays small, quietly, politely, permanently. A high-value man refuses this trade. He refuses to shrink his vision in order to feel safe. He understands that the human spirit was not designed to live small. It was not designed to play it safe forever. It was designed to stretch, to risk, to reach. The man who stops reaching is not at peace. He is just numb. There is a difference between contentment and resignation, and most men have confused the two. Think about it this way. The mind is like a magnifying glass. Scattered light does nothing. It falls everywhere and accomplishes nothing. But focused light, the same light, concentrated into a single point, can start a fire. Most men live with scattered light. A little bit of dream here, a little bit of effort there, a little bit of attention everywhere. Nothing burns, nothing ignites, nothing changes. The high-value man takes that same energy and concentrates it. He picks the vision that matters. He focuses the light, and he holds it there long enough to start something on fire. Now let me ask you something. If you knew with absolute certainty that you could not fail, what would you actually attempt? What would you build? What would you start? Who would you become? Sit with that question. Do not answer it quickly, because the gap between the life you are living and the life you would attempt if fear were removed is the exact measurement of how much fear is shaping your decisions. That gap is the cost of small thinking. That gap is the price of unraised standards. That gap, multiplied by the years you have already lived inside it, is the size of the life you have not yet lived. Here is what most people do not realize. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your standards. Read that again. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your standards. A man can write the most ambitious goals in the world on a piece of paper, but if his daily standards are weak, those goals will never materialize. Goals are direction, standards are gravity, and gravity wins every single day. So what are your standards? not your stated standards, not the ones you tell people about, your actual standards, the ones revealed by your behavior. What time do you actually wake up? What do you actually put in your body? Who do you actually spend your hours with? What do you actually consume with your eyes and your ears all day long? What do you actually tolerate from yourself when no one is watching? Because those, the actual standards, are the floor of your life. And no goal, no matter how big, will ever rise above that floor for long. The high-value man raises his standards relentlessly, not all at once, not in a single dramatic transformation, but continuously, steadily, quietly. He looks at the man he was a year ago and decides that man is not good enough to live this year. He looks at the standards that were acceptable a month ago and decides those standards are not acceptable this month. He is in a constant, deliberate, almost invisible upward pressure on his own life. He does not compare himself to other men. He compares himself to the version of himself that he is becoming, and he does not let that version down. Now understand this deeply. You can change your standards in a single decision, but you can only confirm those standards over thousands of small actions. The decision is free. The confirmation is the work. Most men decide to raise their standards and then collapse the first time the new standard becomes inconvenient. They wanted the benefit without the cost. They wanted the new identity without the daily price of maintaining it. And so they slip back to the old floor and convince themselves that it must just be who they are. But who you are is not a fixed location. Who you are is a direction. And every day you are either drifting downward or pressing upward. There is no holding still. The river is always moving. So think bigger, genuinely bigger, not in fantasy, in commitment. Pick a vision that scares you in a way that excites you, and then raise the floor of your life until it can support that vision. Raise it in the way you speak. Raise it in the way you spend. Raise it in the way you keep promises. Raise it in the way you show up to the small, boring tasks that nobody else notices. Because the small, boring tasks that nobody else notices are exactly where high-value men are made. That is the work. That is the climb. That is where greatness begins. Now let us go even deeper. Because everything we have talked about so far, character, deadlines, vision, standards, all of it rests on a single foundation that most men never consciously build. That foundation is self-respect. Not arrogance, not ego, not performance. Self-respect. The quiet, unshakable internal sense that you are worth the effort you are asking yourself to make. Here is something most people do not realize. You cannot consistently treat yourself well if you do not respect yourself. You can try. You can read the routines. You can buy the planners. You can copy the habits. But underneath all of it, if you do not respect the man you are building, you will quietly sabotage him. You will skip the workout because deep down you do not think the body you are building is worth the discomfort. You will break the diet because deep down you do not think the health you are building is worth the inconvenience. You will abandon the goal because deep down you do not think the life you are building is worth the labor. The behavior follows the belief, always. So self-respect is not a luxury at the top of the pyramid of self-development. It is the foundation underneath the entire pyramid. And it is built, like everything else worth having, slowly, through evidence, through proof, through the small, repeated act of keeping your word to yourself. Let me explain. Imagine you tell a friend every day for 30 days that you are going to meet him at 6 in the morning to walk together. And every single day, you do not show up. After 30 days, would that friend respect you? Would he trust you? Would he believe a single word that comes out of your mouth? Of course not. He would, very reasonably, conclude that your word is empty, that you are not a man to be relied on, that whatever you say should be discounted heavily, because the evidence has spoken louder than the promises. Now ask yourself this honestly. How often do you keep the promises you make to yourself? When you tell yourself you will wake up early, do you wake up early? When you tell yourself you will train, do you train? When you tell yourself you will read, do you read? When you tell yourself, this is the day I begin, do you begin? Or do you, like most men, treat your own word as the cheapest word in your life? Do you grant yourself permission to break promises to yourself in a way you would never tolerate from anyone else? Think about that. Because if your word means nothing to you, then on what foundation could self-respect possibly stand? This is the deepest, unseen leak in most men's lives. It is not their boss. It is not their relationship. It is not the economy. It is the slow, daily erosion of self-trust that comes from making and breaking thousands of tiny promises to themselves. Each broken promise is a small withdrawal from the account of self-respect. And after years of withdrawals, the account is empty. And the man wakes up one day and wonders why he cannot motivate himself, why nothing feels meaningful, why he cannot believe in his own goals. The reason is simple. He has not given himself a reason to believe in him. He has not built the evidence. He has not done the work. Here is the truth. The fastest way to begin building self-respect is to make one small promise to yourself today and keep it. Just one. Not 10, not a complete life overhaul. Just one small, concrete, doable promise, and then keep it. Tomorrow, do it again. And the day after that, again. The promises can be tiny. Make your bed. Drink the water. Take the walk. Read the pages. Do the push-ups. It does not matter what they are as long as they are kept, because each kept promise is a small deposit. And after enough deposits, the account begins to feel rich again. Now listen carefully. Self-respect is not the same as self-image. Self-image is the story you tell yourself about who you are. Self-respect is the evidence you have collected over time about who you actually are. One can be inflated, the other must be earned. The high-value man is not concerned with managing his image. He is concerned with managing his behavior. Because he knows that if the behavior is right, the image will take care of itself. And if the behavior is wrong, no image management in the world will fix it. So how does a man earn his own respect? He earns it by doing hard things on purpose. He earns it by keeping his word when keeping his word is inconvenient. He earns it by sitting with discomfort instead of running from it. He earns it by telling the truth, especially to himself, especially when the truth is unflattering. He earns it by choosing what he wants most over what he wants now, over and over, until that choice becomes second nature. He earns it by being honest about his weaknesses without being defeated by them. He earns it by taking responsibility for his own life, fully, with no scapegoats and no excuses and no convenient villains to blame for who he has become. That last one is the most important. Responsibility. Most men flinch from it. They look at their lives and find the people who have failed them, the systems that have rigged them, the circumstances that have cornered them, the breaks they never got, the parents who did not see them. And there may be truth in all of it. There usually is. But truth does not equal usefulness. Because the moment you place the cause of your life outside of yourself, you also place the power outside of yourself. And no man can respect himself while standing in that posture. The high-value man takes responsibility not because everything is his fault, but because responsibility is the only ground from which he can build anything at all. Responsibility is power, dressed up in work clothes. Think about it. Think about it slowly. The man who blames his circumstances cannot change his circumstances because he has handed over his agency. The man who blames the people in his past cannot heal from his past because he is still letting those people define him. The man who blames the system cannot rise above the system because he is still living inside the system's permission. The high-value man stops asking who made his life this way and starts asking what he is going to do about it. That single shift, from victim to author, is the single most powerful shift a man can make in his entire life. And every man, no matter where he is starting from, has access to it. Self-respect is the natural overflow of a man who is taking responsibility and keeping his promises to himself. It cannot be faked. It cannot be hurried. It cannot be borrowed. It can only be built in the quiet, in the dark, in the daily, unwitnessed labor of becoming someone worth being. And here is the most beautiful part. Once that foundation is built, no one can take it from you. The market can crash. The relationship can end. The job can disappear. The world can throw whatever it wants at you. But the man with deep self-respect cannot be shaken at the core. He has built something on the inside that the outside cannot reach. He has, in the truest sense, become unshakable. Not because nothing hurts him, but because nothing defines him. That is maturity. That is power. That is where everything else stands. Now let me tell you something important. We need to talk about money, because no conversation about becoming a high-value man is complete without it. Money is not the measure of a man. Money is not the meaning of a man. But money is, without question, a reflection of certain habits a man has either built or refused to build. And a man's relationship with money will, eventually, expose every weakness and every strength in his character. Here is the truth. Most men have a deeply confused relationship with money. They want it desperately, but they speak about it with shame. They chase it relentlessly, but they pretend they are above it. They envy those who have it, but they criticize them in the same breath. They want the freedom money brings, but they refuse to learn the discipline money requires. And so they live in a permanent, exhausting contradiction, never quite making peace with money, never quite escaping the gravitational pull of needing it. The high-value man clears the fog. He understands money for what it is. Money is a tool, not a god, not a demon, not a measure of human worth, a tool, a neutral instrument that amplifies whoever you already are. If you are generous, money makes you more generous. If you are greedy, money makes you more greedy. If you are wise, money expands your wisdom. If you are foolish, money accelerates your foolishness. Money is not the cause of who you become. Money is the magnifier of who you already are. Let me ask you something honestly. What is your relationship with money right now? Not what you wish it was, what it actually is. Do you respect it or do you resent it? Do you manage it or does it manage you? Do you save it or does it slip through your fingers the moment it arrives? Do you understand it or do you avoid understanding it because the numbers make you uncomfortable? Because here is what most men never realize. Your bank account is one of the most honest mirrors in your life. It does not flatter you. It does not lie to you. It reflects, with terrible accuracy, the choices you have actually been making over time. If the reflection is uncomfortable, the answer is not to break the mirror. The answer is to change the choices. A healthy relationship with money begins with a simple decision. Decide that you will be a student of money for the rest of your life. Not a slave to it, not a worshiper of it, a student. Decide that you will learn how money actually works, how it is earned, how it is multiplied, how it is lost, how it is preserved. Because here is something most people refuse to admit. The reason most men struggle with money for their entire lives is not because they do not earn enough. It is because they have never bothered to learn the subject. They went to school for years and never spent a single semester studying the one tool they would use every day for the rest of their adult lives. And then they wonder why they feel lost. Now understand this deeply. There is no shame in not knowing yet. There is enormous shame in refusing to learn. The high-value man is not embarrassed by his current financial situation, whatever it is. He is only embarrassed by the prospect of being in the same situation 5 years from now because he refused to grow. The current number does not define him. The trajectory does. And the trajectory is fully within his control. Here are the laws that the high-value man learns to live by, not because someone told him to, but because reality eventually teaches them to every man who is willing to listen. First, spend less than you earn. Always, without exception. The size of the income does not matter. A man earning a fortune who spends a fortune plus $1 is poor. A man earning a modest income who spends 90% of it is on the path to wealth. The math is simple. The discipline is rare. Most men, when their income rises, raise their lifestyle to match it, and then wonder why more money has not produced more freedom. It has not produced freedom because freedom does not come from earning more. Freedom comes from needing less than you earn. That gap between what you bring in and what you spend is the only soil where wealth can ever grow. Second, pay yourself first. Before the bills, before the entertainment, before the impulses. A portion of every dollar that enters your hands must be set aside for your future before it is allowed to be touched by your present. Most men do this in reverse. They spend first and save whatever is left, which is almost always nothing. The high-value man flips the order. He decides before any temptation arrives that a percentage of his income belongs to the man he is becoming, not the man he is right now. And he honors that decision before he honors any other claim on his money. Third, learn the difference between an asset and a liability. An asset puts money into your pocket over time. A liability takes money out. Most men spend their lives accumulating liabilities that look like assets. The bigger car, the bigger house than they need, the things that impress strangers and drain accounts. The high-value man becomes obsessed, quietly, with the slow accumulation of real assets, skills, investments, ownership, things that pay him while he sleeps, things that grow even when he is not watching them. Fourth, do not let money become your identity. This is the trap that swallows even men who learn the first three principles. The moment a man begins to define himself by his net worth, he has handed his soul to a number. And numbers go up and down. Markets crash, businesses fail, industries change. The man who has his money is destroyed when his money is destroyed. The man who has money but is not his money loses a chapter of his life and keeps the book. The high-value man uses money. He does not become it. He commands money in the service of his values. He does not let money command him into a life that is not his. Think about that. Think about it carefully. The goal is not to be rich. The goal is to be free. Free to do what matters. Free to give where you want to give. Free to walk away from what does not serve you. Free to build what is calling you. Free to spend your hours on the things and the people that deserve them. Money used wisely is the purchase of freedom. Money used foolishly is the purchase of distraction. The high-value man knows the difference, and he chooses freedom every time. Now here is the deeper layer. A man's relationship with money is, ultimately, a mirror of his relationship with himself. The man who cannot delay gratification with money cannot delay gratification with anything else. The man who cannot tell himself no in the store cannot tell himself no in the rest of his life. The man who lies about money in his head will lie about other things in his life. And the man who masters the small daily discipline of handling money well builds, in the process, the same muscles he needs to handle every other area of his life well. Money is not just about money. Money is about character, expressed in numbers. That is why this section is in this conversation. Because if you cannot lead yourself with a dollar, you cannot lead yourself with anything. So make peace with money, not the love of money, which corrupts, not the fear of money, which limits, the mastery of money, the quiet, adult, responsible command of the resources that move through your hands. Take them seriously, treat them with respect, direct them with intention, and watch how, slowly, the same man who learns to lead his money also begins to lead his life. That is wisdom. That is freedom. That is the financial face of the high-value man. Now let us bring this together, because by now you may be feeling the weight of all of it. Character, goals, vision, standards, self-respect, responsibility, money. It is a lot. It can feel like an impossible mountain to climb in one lifetime, let alone in one decade, let alone starting from where you are right now. And I want you to hear this clearly. The high-value man is not built in a year. He is not built in 5 years. He is built across an entire life, quietly, one decision at a time. So the question is not whether you can be perfect tomorrow. The question is whether you will begin tonight. Here is what most people do not realize. The difference between the man who eventually becomes high value and the man who never does is not intelligence. It is not opportunity. It is not background. It is consistency over time. It is the willingness to keep climbing when no one is watching, when no one is clapping, when no one even knows the mountain is there. Most men quit not because the climb is impossible, but because the climb is boring. They want the transformation in cinematic form, in a montage of triumphant moments. They do not want the actual transformation, which is mostly invisible, mostly unglamorous, mostly just one more day of doing the thing you said you would do. Think about a tree. Think about it carefully. The tree does not grow in dramatic bursts. It grows so slowly that even on the days when it is growing fastest, you cannot see the growth happening. And yet, after years, the tree is undeniable. Its roots are deep. Its trunk is thick. Its branches are wide. It has become something that storms cannot easily shake. That is exactly how a high-value man is built. Not in flashes, in seasons, in years, in the unseen growth that no one is impressed by until suddenly the tree is too large to ignore. So I want you to release the fantasy of overnight transformation. It does not exist. It has never existed. Every man you admire who looks like an overnight success was building, quietly, for years before anyone noticed. The moment you see is the result of a decade you did not see. Do not envy the moment, honor the decade, and then start building your own. Let me ask you something. Who are you becoming? Not who are you right now. Not who you wish you were. Who, based on your daily habits, your repeated choices, your actual standards, are you on track to become 5 years from now? If nothing changes, if today's pattern simply continues, what man will be standing here in 5 years? Will you be proud of him? Will you respect him? Will the world owe him anything it does not owe you right now? Because that man, the man 5 years out, is being built today, right now, by the decisions you are or are not making in this exact season of your life. Now understand this deeply. The compound effect of daily discipline is almost magical, except that it is not magic at all. It is math. A small daily improvement sustained across years produces results so dramatic that they look like miracles to people who did not witness the daily work. The man who reads 20 pages a day reads thousands of books across his life. The man who trains 30 minutes a day builds a body that the casual observer assumes was a gift of genetics. The man who saves a small percentage of every dollar across decades retires with options that his peers cannot fathom. None of it was dramatic. All of it was inevitable, the moment the discipline was set in motion and protected. Here is the secret most men never learn. You do not need to be exceptional in any single day. You only need to be consistent across many days. The exceptional man is rarely exceptional in his moments. He is exceptional in his pattern. He is exceptional in the way he refuses to abandon the climb just because today is hard, or today is boring, or today is uninspiring. He shows up anyway. He does the thing anyway. He honors his word to himself anyway. And in doing so, slowly, almost invisibly, he becomes the man the world will eventually call extraordinary. So here is your invitation. Decide today that you are climbing. Not sprinting, not pretending, climbing. Pick the mountain that matters. Set the deadlines. Raise the standards. Build the self-respect. Take responsibility. Master the money. And then keep climbing. One small, obedient day at a time. When it is exciting and when it is boring. When it is praised and when it is invisible. When you feel like it and especially when you do not. Because feelings will lie to you. Discipline will not. That is the path. That is the work. That is where it begins. So let me leave you with this. A high-value man is not born. He is built. He is built in the quiet hours when no one is watching. He is built in the small choices that no one applauds. He is built in the promises kept to himself, the standards raised in private, the responsibility taken when it would be easier to blame. He is not the man with the loudest voice. He is the man with the heaviest presence. He is not the man with the most possessions. He is the man with the most peace. He is not the man with the most followers. He is the man with the most foundation. You can be that man. You, the one reading this, listening to this, sitting with this right now. You do not need different parents. You do not need a different past. You do not need a different country, a different break, a different deck of cards. You need a different decision, and then another, stacked, patiently, across the years that you still have in front of you. Stop waiting for permission. No one is coming to give it to you. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. The moment is the one you are in. Stop waiting to feel ready. Readiness is built, not delivered. Start the climb. Start small if you have to, but start. Raise your standards. Control your habits. Respect your time. Build your character. Keep your word, especially to yourself. Pick the goal and give it a deadline. Master your money so that your money cannot master you. Take responsibility for the entire life you are living, the good and the hard, because that is the only ground from which anything can be built. And then keep going. When it is boring, keep going. When it is hard, keep going. When no one notices, keep going. Especially when no one notices, keep going. Because the man being built in those unseen seasons is the man the seen world will eventually have no choice but to respect. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Read that line slowly. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Because in the end, the job will come and go. The company will come and go. The titles will come and go. But the man you are building inside is the only thing you actually take with you through every chapter of your life. Build him well. Build him honestly. Build him quietly. Build him daily. And one day you will look up and you will not recognize the man you used to be. And you will not need to announce it because the world will already be treating you differently. Not because you demanded it, but because you became it. That is the work. That is the path. That is the man. Start tonight. Begin in the dark, where greatness is always born, before the world ever sees it, and keep climbing.